Ariel Bullion Ecklund is an artist and curator in upstate New York. Ariel holds a BFA in art photography from the School of Visual and Performing Arts and a master's degree in museum studies, both from Syracuse University. She's the owner and director of Corners Gallery, Ithaca, New York. Ariel employs the mediums of ceramics and photography to explore themes of identity, loss, and memory. Her work is in many private collections, and she actively exhibits in galleries and museums. Ariel views her work as illustrative of the complexities of the human condition and as a tangible record of her existence. Thank you, Ariel, for being here. And I just wanted to also mention that this event is generously funded by Art Bridges. Thank you.
Should I grab the clicker maybe? Thank you so much. All right. Yeah, thank you all again for being here. I think what we're going to do at this part of the presentation is give a little bit of background to our other bodies of work, our work as artists, our past portfolios. In my part of the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about Shinnecock as well, where I'm coming from, and then we'll debut these really mysterious drapes in front of you. Maybe I'll start with just a map, again, of Long Island. This isn't an illustration that I did, but this is a map by David Bunmartine. This is a map dated 1992, and it shows the 13 original tribal communities of Long Island, New York. And out of the 13, just 2 retain a Indian reservation. So Shinnecock is 800 square acres of territory out of over 5,000. And Unkachog Nation, they used to have the same amount before colonization, but it's just 40 acres today. So those 2 are lands that we're trying to grow for economic and residential reasons. And Montaukets, if you can see, or if you know of them on the east end of Long Island, they're still fighting for state recognition. So they've been petitioning since, I believe, 1910. And unfortunately, back then, they went to a courthouse in Suffolk County, and they were all in the same room, over 50 tribal members, and they were declared extinct as a tribe, right in front of their faces. So a lot of the work that I do as an artist is to hopefully bring truth and activism through the art. This is our tribal seal and flag as Shinnecock people. If you're familiar with the medicine wheel, you have the black, white, red, and yellow as the 4 directions, or the 4 seasons, or the 4 people. There's just so much symbolism. Let me see if I can get the pointer. We have the box turtle, also with 13 sections for Long Island. We have the Atlantic right whales. This is really important here. This is the Shinnecock Indian Nation letters, but it's also done in what's called wampum jewelry. So for thousands of years, our ancestors have been gathering purple and white clamshells on our Atlantic coasts and rendering them into these very delicate beads. So this is something that's traditional to the Northeast, and in fact, nowhere in the world do you find this phenomenon with a clamshell. So next time you're at powwow, you have to go and look for that type of jewelry. There's just so much symbolism. One other thing I'll point out is the wigwams. So many people think that even today that we lived in teepees, or somehow that we still live in teepees, but we lived in these dome structures, and we live in modern housing today. One thing I also randomly want to point out is always sovereign. Just because next year, 2026, is the anniversary of the 250, and we like to say at Shinnecock, whether it's true or not, we're the oldest self-governing tribal nation in the country, dating back to 1792. I also wanted to mention this flyer for Shinnecock Powwow. It's every Labor Day weekend, and I believe, this is from this past year. Next year is going to be our 80th in a row, so it should be a grand celebration. It's a huge gathering of nations, as you can see. If you've never been, ours is the largest on the East Coast. We have over 20,000 people who come through, just over 4 days, and it's traditional dance, food, and art. So great time to come and support Shinnecock for sure. This isn't my photograph, but this is the oldest ever group photo of Shinnecock people ever created in 1884. But ironically, with this being the first ever photo, the caption reads, "The last of the Shinnecock Indian Nation." So this very much relates to the Indian simulating buffalo, this false narrative that Native people are destined to disappear. But hopefully me being in front of you denies that. This is some of my work. This is a series called The Lazy. So just like Shelley Niro's work, I like to incorporate humor as a way of countering maybe trauma or making the work more easy to enter into. So if it's hard to read, it says, "We are still here" in each image. That's one of the very common mottos that you hear in, sometimes I call it Indian country. Just the idea that we're survivors of what has happened to us. What you see in the background in each image are vacant storefronts. And in the Hamptons, when it's not the summertime, everything closes down. And one thing that's interesting about that is when colonists first came to the eastern seaboard, they saw land as being vacant and apparently no one was using it. So they all took and claimed anything that we didn't actively use or inhabit. So I'm looking at the Hamptons today as a possible reversal. Going back all the way to 2013, I've been doing photography for over 10 years at this point. And this is one of my earliest. But this is another tribal member. Her name's Shelley Bullion. Over time, since 2013, I've been cutting out these different powwow dancers, placing them into different compositions, and trying to depict our creation stories, stories about where we come from. That was my earliest ever body of work. As I mentioned before, the image that's in the galleries now, the Duke site, it comes from this on the site project. So if you go to nativelongisland.com, you can check out the full extent of the project. Maybe if I'm able to, this is about the location right there on that border where that landscape was taken. So there's so much content. It's 10,000 years. It's Brooklyn to Montauk. This is the site that started the whole thing. This is called Sugarloaf Hill. And unfortunately in 1990, the same year that I was born, this house was constructed on one of the few hilltops that are on the east end. For Shinnecock people and other people of Long Island, because the island is so flat, we ended up using these hilltops as sacred burial sites, just because we always agreed no one would make the effort to build up there. It would always be protected. But in the Hamptons, where real estate and land and having a luxurious view is the prime real estate, this became developed in 1990. And it wasn't until 30 years later, in 2021, that the site was finally preserved. It's only about 1 acre, but it cost $5 million from a private donor to finally purchase it and then demolish the house on top. So yeah, the house is demolished, the pool is filled in, and if you can imagine it, in order to make it flat to build upon in 1990, the top of the hill, it had to be cut down 20 feet. So there's a lot of destruction that was happening here. Besides the landscape photography, I love portraiture as well. I was very shy growing up, and doing portraiture was a way for me to connect with others. I love how art can be social, it can be engaging, you can meet so many people and tell their story as well, in addition to your own. This is a project that's ever ongoing. It's called ShinnecockPortraits.com. And I'm hoping that all 600 tribal members who live on the territory will be interviewed and photographed by me and sharing their story as part of that. This was on view. This should be familiar. This is called I Could Stand Here All Night. This is part of an ongoing project called Rise. And in fact, the piece that's going to debut towards the end of the presentation is also part of this series. It's all about the idea of indigenous reoccupation of ancestral lands. So it could be seen as, do these people actually see each other? Could this person be a ghost? Could this person have existed for thousands of years and never moved? Maybe this pool was built around him. I'm happy with all these different interpretations, but at the end of the day, it's all about this idea of being seen. It's about who's trespassing, where do we all belong, whether it's the land or geography itself, or is it history versus present day. all these questions around belonging. And so the body of work plays around with fear. So this is a native figure adorned by a bed sheet, and it's meant to be like a Halloween costume of a ghost. And a lot of people, even in the 21st century, see Native people as ghosts or seen as people who are stuck in the past. And so a lot of the work that I do plays around with that idea, poking holes or making fun of maybe some of the simplified ways that people see us. Other times it pulls from art history. We were talking about that in the gallery earlier. This is Henry Fuseli's The Nightmare. And it's just this idea about the sleep paralysis demon who haunts this woman who can't wake up. And I think a lot about that with American history and how we have all these accomplishments, but it's all built on this shaky foundation. Other times it's in the realm of religious iconography. When I was a student at Stony Brook, SUNY Stony Brook, I sat in art history classes. We learned so much about Italian Renaissance, medieval art, sculpture, and painting. And there's just dozens and dozens of paintings from the Crucifixion to the Annunciation. It seems like it never ends, but they're all so beautiful in their own way. I was thinking about that and how the compositions are so strong. Like this is a medieval sculpture from the early 16th century, but the triangle composition is so well known in art. So just imitating that in my own work to talk about both the crucifixion, but also the sacrifice. When we think about land back, we have to think about who's being removed, who's sacrificing something, and it doesn't have to just be losing one's home. It could be about granting a home as well. And I'll pass it to Ariel to take it from here. Thank you.
I knocked your camera over.
Oh, it's okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Oh, maybe I'll scoot over where you are.
Well, that was great. Glasses. In case you hadn't heard, this is my name. I'm an artist and a curator.
Would you mind speaking?
Oh, yes. Maybe I'll sit over here in Jeremy's chair. I live in Ithaca, and I have a gallery, and I've been a gallery owner for 16 years. Can you hear me okay, or not yet?
You might have to bring it closer.
Is that better? A little? I'll speak louder. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I've owned a gallery for 16 years. This year I mounted my 105th curatorial exhibition. I've been doing some off-site, out-of-the-office curatorial projects this year, which have been nice to kind of get out of the office, so to speak. My work is primarily in ceramics, but sometimes in photography and mixed media and works on paper. I was born in Buffalo, New York, to a single mother, and my father died when I was very young, and I didn't know his side of the family. I didn't know his parents. I didn't know his siblings. I didn't know if he had any siblings. My mother was an only child as well, and so I didn't have that sort of normal upbringing with aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents. My mother also died when I was just out of high school. She had cancer and died a few years after she was diagnosed. So I have this sort of unique upbringing. Didn't feel that unique when I was younger. I just felt like normal. But as I've moved on throughout my life, it's become apparent that was not necessarily the case for everybody else. So my work is mostly in ceramics and photography, and a lot of it deals with loss. I also am very concerned with feeling and emotion and the human condition, and how we all have these kinds of experiences. I feel like I might absorb these things a little bit more intensely than others, and so I feel the need to kind of put that out there in my work. I'm very much concerned with, or I think a lot about physical impermanence, and the physical self, and what might happen after we are no longer here in a physical way. My mother was very demanding, and she was a perfectionist, and she was, hard, a little bit hard to deal with, and so all of these things kind of have created my own self-identity, and that's where my work comes from. I'll show you a few slides. This piece is titled Whisper. It is a multimedia, obviously, working in ceramics. This little porcelain piece is ceramic. My color palette is generally pretty muted. I work with white and red and black primarily. I find that for me to sort of distill emotion into my work, I personally just don't want the distraction of a lot of color. For me, this is a kind of a visual poem. It's sort of like a narrative in a dreamlike state. The two pieces of vellum are sewn together, hand sewn together with a piece of red thread, and the red thread doesn't quite go to the end. And that for me means that there's this story that's being told that's perhaps unfinished, or that it's been, things are feeling untethered or loose. The vellum has a bit of a hazy appearance, and the photograph itself I took blurry on purpose and intentionally, so as to impart the sense of maybe there's memory loss, or things are far away and unreachable. For me, this piece is a piece about stepping into a space that is perhaps life after death, or a space that perhaps you've lost someone, whether it's a relationship that you've stepped away from, or from someone that has since died. It's a space where you can kind of re-enter that experience. This piece is titled Lineage, and it is porcelain. Porcelain, and that's been painted onto adhered onto a wood panel. This piece for me represents the spinal cord and the skeletal system. For me, that is an important part of being a physical person. Obviously, that's what keeps us together and standing upright. But again, I do think about how the physical self can sometimes disappear, but there's this kind of poetic beauty. I don't know if you've had the experience of walking in the woods and finding a fragment of bone, or a fragment of a vessel, and thinking, where has this come from? Who was this person? What was this being? Who did this plate belong to? Where did this vessel come from? These ideas that perhaps we have a physical self at one point, and then that disappears, and then there's this remnant, and I think that's just beautiful. I also think about lineage in terms of hereditary traits and familial You know, what I might have inherited from my mother, what my daughter might inherit from me. I think about that a lot. This piece is in my arms. It is porcelain. It's a porcelain tabletop piece. It's kind of hard to see in the second image. And it's a wax thread that I have kind of methodically and cathartically wrapped around this cradle-like piece. For me, that particular motion is very much soothing. It gives me the illusion of being in control. And I said illusion, you know. It also, for me, means, gives the feeling of swaddling an infant, or being, you know, a mother and swaddling an infant, or being swaddled as an infant. The feeling of being protected and loved, all of those, you know, feelings as a human being that I think that we all desire to be and to feel. And lastly, this is fleeting. This is again sort of a narrative visual poem, in this time incorporating my own handwriting in a stream of conscious way of writing, of recording emotion and of recording a specific thought. I get frustrated that moments disappear so quickly, that feelings and emotions and experiences are very temporary. You know, I want some of those things to be more concrete and to be more everlasting, and sometimes they're not. Well, they're usually not. For me, the act of physically writing and the act of photographing certain places or certain time periods, for me, that's a way to try to memorialize or try to keep more concrete a specific time or place. And that's all I have.
All right. Maybe I'll join you in the chair. Thank you. Maybe it's easier to hear if we're holding the microphones too. Let me see. Oh yeah, that's much better. So I know we only have moments left, so maybe we'll just go through this next section real quick and then unveil. This past 2025, I was really excited because New York Council for the Arts supported a solo exhibit of mine at this place called Garrison Art Center in upstate New York. This is a photo that was taken while we were scouting. In the distance, you can see that if you've ever heard of or been to West Point Military Academy, it's just across the water. It's like literally, you can't even avoid looking at it when you look at Hudson River. Ariel and I went up there, we scouted locations. The reason why we're here in front of you speaking, even though both of our art has so much overlap, whether it's family, memory, things that we're trying to memorialize, all those things are in both of our work. I didn't realize it at the time when I reached out to Ariel how expansive her work was and how connected we were. Ariel was so kind, and she actually came out down from Ithaca all the way to Garrison to do some photography. I think it was 3 or 4 hour drive. So a lot of dedication, spent the night. We went to many different locations and ended up collaborating. Ariel was a model and thought partner. We rented an Airbnb. A lot of those works were printed just in time for that May deadline for the show. And this is what we came up with. This is a show called Scenes of Resistance, and it's from the same series that you'll see in a moment. It's from the same series as that pool image, but all in response to the military history of West Point. So I love it when artists respond to place, especially when it's a commission and a partnership. So there's Ariel and The piece behind her on the right, that's one of the pieces that we ended up showing. These are just a couple of the highlights that Ariel and I did together. So it's a little bit hard to see, but Ariel's brushing her teeth. This is my self-portraiture. Maybe trespassing, maybe a ghost, maybe it's someone who, you never know whose house this belongs to. But one thing that you see in the foreground that's hard to see perhaps in the distance is this is just a handgun. So it's talking about the early history of America during colonization. If you didn't know it, even when colonists went to church in New England, they would have all of their rifles in the back of the church just in case there was an Indian raid. So just referencing that history and how today, I'm sure someone in the room knows that statistic where there's like 3 times as many guns as there are Americans, something to that effect. This is another sweet image too, because I admire Ariel so much, and you can't see who these 2 people are, but it's us on the stage. And this image is titled, This Could Be Us, and it's all about the idea of Indian captivity and what that might look like today. This is Ariel again, adorned in a wig, so she looks totally different, but we pulled on our own fears, like something's in the closet, something's in the room, maybe there's a ghost. And so we did a little bit of performing for this one. And finally, we just found this kind of church scene. So there's so many instances where Native people are just existing, just because we're present, just because we live where we live. Sometimes we're faced with violence and exodus, forced removal. So those are some of the images that Ariel and I created together, and they're some of my favorite pieces. I'm so grateful to Ariel and her time and being here today. I think we're going to be doing the exciting part of the program today. Maybe I'll start with my piece. This is what we just saw in the gallery. Let me see if I have any notes, things I might miss. So again, this is Frederic Remington's Indians Simulating Buffalo. And this is, well, I'll just show you the slide. Maybe it's easier for everyone to see. But this is my version that I created in 2025. It simulates the same poses as the 1908 painting. They're looking at each other, echoing the original composition, but the buffalo hide is replaced by the American flag draped over both of their backs. This choice kind of reflects on the symbol of the nation, which America often obscures Indigenous presence while still marking our history and survival. That's what the image tries to do in 2 different ways. This image, it doesn't really look like, well, it could be the Hudson Valley, but it was actually done in Italy in a place called Perugia. There was an artist residency there. I was there just 2 months ago at a residency called Civitella Ranieri, which you don't see it in this image, but if you look 180 degrees the other way, it's this medieval castle that they let us stay in, overlooking the countryside. And so being away from home, it gave me so much perspective. It let me reflect on the history of America from a distance. And the painting, thinking about images of Native people continuing to shape ideas about our presence and absence. So I really love how the interpreted piece, the commission piece with Hudson River Museum came out. I shared it with Ariel, and Ariel's going to go next with her debut. Maybe since the piece is in front of you, do you want to do the magician reveal? Or
Love to.
Ooh, nice, beautiful work. So I have it on the slideshow, but I'll also keep Shelley's up so that Ariel can talk about both at the same time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Can you hear me? Do I need the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So for me, I started with the ceramic piece because I make ceramic vessels, and it's something that I'm very comfortable with doing. And for me, the heart feels very much like a vessel. It feels very much parallel to something that holds feeling and emotion. A ceramic vessel can hold water, which is very important to life. The heart, the vessel of the heart, obviously keeps us alive. You know, it can hold, this could hold ashes, it can hold water. So for me, those two things are very much kind of parallel one another. I'm referencing Shelley's piece here with this red sort of bloodline, or the breaking of the heart. Obviously, you know, Shelley has, from what I read, she has extensive experience and extensive oral tradition. She knows where she comes from. She knows her people. And for me, you know, I felt very much like this is completely opposite of how I feel. You know, I feel completely unknown to my family members, and I don't know who my family members are besides my very immediate family, which comes into the photography part of the piece. I guess I mentioned in the gallery space that, you know, she works with photography in a way that is recontextualizing her own narrative, making her own identity. And I guess with this piece I'm doing the same, but for me I shot the Polaroids intentionally blank because in history we have a way of thinking of Polaroids as a way of documenting important family, you know, traditions and events and birthday parties and graduations and things like that. But for me, you know, I do have family photographs from a long time ago, but I don't know who these people are. The imagery in the photographs, the people in the photographs, I maybe have a name, but I don't have any sense of what the character is or who, you know, I have no emotional connection. So that's where the photography comes into place. And it also, as we had talked about in the gallery space, you know, the photography for Shelley doing and for Jeremy doing it sort of disservice in terms of, you know, representing in the wrong way of who Native people are. So that's also a, you know, a reference point there. But, you know, I'm so happy to be here. And I really appreciate your work, and I appreciate you as a person, and you're the sweetest person I've worked with, and I'm happy to be your friend.
Oh, so wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah. Oh, sure.
Oh, yes.
So I think we'll increase the lights. We'll allow everyone to look at the pieces up close, but yeah, these are the brand new pieces. Oh, yeah, move some of these.
And we can get the.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the first time I'm actually seeing it too. If you look in the back of the room, you can see the package for the box. So yeah, I'm just proud of how it came out.
Hot off the press.
Yeah. I'm so grateful to Ariel as well. So much of my portfolio and belief in my own work is thanks to her. And so grateful to Hudson River Museum, because if it wasn't for this enormous support over years at this point, this work wouldn't exist. Meeting all of you wouldn't have happened. And yes, I think that's what art is all about, just supporting each other and bringing everyone together. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.